YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV, and today we're going to be trying to solve some of the mysteries of Gale Crater for you space detectives out there who want to see what's going on. Basically, over the years I've found many skulls, and lots of people have found them, but I've found hundreds, and a lot of them are animals, but a lot of them are humanoids, and a lot of them are statues as well. There's a mixture. And some of them are kind of like grave markers like this one. And a lot of people over the years have said, where are all the bodies? Now that's a very good question. But today, what I'm going to show you are some limbs and other bones, things like arms and legs and feet and hands, that kind of thing. Because obviously if there are hundreds, or in fact in this area I would say there are thousands of these, but we've only seen probably about 100 or 200. Somewhere around 200 mark on my channel anyway. Others have found some as well, but I've got the vast majority of them on here. And some of these are other people's finds that I've credited. Now, if there are this many skulls lying around, you'd expect there to be a lot more skeletons and other bones lying around as well. But as I've been saying for many years, I do think that most of them have been carried off and eaten. Now, some of the burial mounds that I've shown recently have only got skulls and carvings there. They don't seem to have other bones, although we don't know until we dig into them. They may be put in little separate chambers and stuff like that, just piled up, whereas the skulls are put on display. Now, there are other limbs and things lying around. I'm going to show you one now. Let's crack on with it straight away. Here it is. Now, I've got this in a couple of GIGAPANs here, and this is MSL 2751 to 2767. It's not so good, this one. Let's zoom out. We got a huge ridge line up here. This is really high, it's about 20 feet. Well, it's not that high. It looks high because it's closer, but it's a bit higher than this one at the back. Now you may remember this one from a video I did recently, where I showed this thing here, which is a skull. So we got a skull right here. It's a reptoid or reptilian looking skull. And if you want to see that, go back to my videos, go back at 1 month, and the video is called Who Built the Sphinx and Pyramids on Mars. It's in there, and it shows it in detail here. I'll just show you that very quickly. There we are. Unfortunately, it's not a very good quality image, but you can see it's there. You can see the teeth and the nose, and it's kind of a bit similar to the nose on this thing. So I went into a lot of detail about this before, so if you want to check that out, go to that video, which was from May the 5th. I'll put a link to it at the end. Let's crack on with it. Now, what we have today is a leg, and this one I think is the best one, because it's not only got more contrast in it, it's brighter, it's got more shadow, and a bit more detail, although there's a bit more distortion in it because it's been sharpened quite heavily. That does add a bit of noise, but what it does do is give you more contrast and detail here. Now, what is this? It's a leg, and we have a foot with toes, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 toes. Can't really tell because it's all been chewed up. Now, what's happened to it? It's been partially eaten by the looks of it, which I think may well confirm my theory that most of the limbs have been torn off and dragged off and eaten. Now, this one looks like a leg of a mummified person, or it's a leg that became mummified. Now, what's more likely? Is it more likely that a body would be mummified and then the leg torn off, or a leg torn off that then was left to mummify? I think the former rather than the latter. We don't really know. I'm just trying to use a bit of basic common sense, really. I mean, what else can I say? It's a leg with a foot and toes, but it's in very bad shape. It looks like it's mummified and preserved, but there's a huge chunk taken out of it. Now, I've got it up here, and I'll show you a load more of these in a minute as well. I've got lots of other limbs and hands and things like that, and feet. Now, some of them are from statues, some of them are from actual specimens, either ape-like specimens or human remains, okay? Or humanoid remains, I should say. We don't really know if the Martians were fully human, whatever that means. Don't really know what that means. But I've got it up here anyway. Now, this is a clip from the raw black and white image, which I've got up here. This is the raw black and white image, sold 2751 mass cam. Links below for all this stuff as usual. And if you want links for any of the other things I'm showing, you may have to go through the videos that they're in, go back through my videos, or just ask me. A lot of the links have changed over the years because the site's been updated. This website's been updated recently and is different, and all the links have changed. So a lot of these things I found a long time ago, so the links may not work. So feel free to ask. Right, so there we have it. We got it there. Zoom out. There's some crazy stuff in here. This rock over here actually was interesting. I thought it was something interesting, but it looks like a layer of pancakes. Insane. Absolutely nuts. There's crazy stuff, and that, like I said, that reptilian skull is over here. Now, does it belong to this dude or dudette? Does the leg belong to it? I don't know. The problem is, there are so many of these around, it could almost belong to any of them. And it could have been dragged along by a dog or some other kind of creature. I'm not saying there are dogs alive there now. I'm saying there were. It could have been dragged by a lizard or a dog or something else, or a cat even, and just left here for some reason. Or, more likely, this actual mound itself, if you zoom out, is actually another one of these burial dolmen type structures where we have chambers in it with mummified and preserved body parts like skulls and actual mummies. Now, what it could be an example of is of something that's fallen down the mound. It may have been up here in a chamber, or it may have been a chamber on the side here. This may have been an actual chamber here, and there may be other parts belonging to this leg buried in this sand right by it. Now, this may look like a natural formation, but a lot of these mounds are natural, but were adapted as dolmens. They were dug into and used for tombs and burials. Okay, so that's what I think this is more likely to be, rather than an animal just leaving it there for some reason, or dropping it. A bird could have dropped it. Who knows? But there would be scavengers. If there were burial chambers, some of these may be burial chambers up here, quite crude, as I've shown before. They're very crude, some of them, and look very, very primitive, kind of early Stone Age, I would say, or perhaps Neo-Stone Age. So I think this may well be a burial that's kind of uncovered, and the structure behind it is possibly another burial dolmen, or at least was adapted as one, possibly from a natural structure, not built. Okay, so like a cairn, like the cairns of Ireland, you know. So there we are. So there was that, and basically, let me just outline the details for you. Here's the raw black and white clip. Now this doesn't show a lot of detail, but it doesn't have hardly any distortion in here, because I've very carefully treated it so that it doesn't add any crap, and you can see the shape quite clearly. Obviously, there's the foot coming round. Now here's the big toe here, smaller toe, another toe, another toe, but there's damage to this, and there's bits hanging off, or this dark thing here may be a little rock behind it. Okay, 1, 2, 3. There's at least 4 toes. Maybe there's 5 there. I don't know. I can't really say. There's not quite enough detail there. Now here's where the knee should be here, but it's kind of been bitten away or chewed off, so it comes around there, and then it's all kind of bitten off. So this whole part of the leg here has been removed, probably by a predator or scavenger. This part here, okay? So this is the bit we're missing. So we're missing the top part of the knee and this part of the thigh, right? So there we are. And you can see here where it's kind of been, looks like it's been removed from the rest of the body. We got some jagged, sort of torn sort of details here. And interestingly, if you look at the I'll show you the colorized version of it, which is from the GIGAPAN. You can actually see some interesting things here, which I'm going to point out to you. Now, if you look carefully, you can see a lot more detail, but some of this detail is distorted. So try and ignore this stuff here and some of the stuff around it. Just try and stick to the actual foot and leg. Okay. Now on this one, this looks like it's joined, because it's been darkened much more. This thing's sticking out. So that may be a bit of flesh or something, or bone sticking out. And you can see here that it looks like it's torn and eaten away there. So there's more detail here. But we've also got this row of kind of nodules on the side of it here. Now, what does that represent? Like a ring. See that? Let me just get rid of that a minute and you can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What is that? Now, on Earth, when you have dead bodies that are left in the wild, they often grow fungus on them, especially if they're left in a forest. Now, I'm not saying this is a forest, but there are fungi in the area, and I have shown them before. And a lot of these remains have these things growing on them, which may be a type of fungi. I couldn't tell you for sure, but that is an educated guess based on what I've already seen. And there are many examples of it. But look at the toes. Look at these toes. 1, 2, 3. I think there's 5 there. But it's all kind of chewed up. So something's had a good gnaw at this and left it there. Perhaps they decided it wasn't really worth eating because it's all dried out and mummified and there's no real nourishment in there. It's just kind of skin and bone. Okay, it looks pretty desiccated and dried out, freeze dried. So it looks like part of a mummified person that was probably buried on this mound and it's become uncovered. There's no tracks around it or anything. There is a bit of disturbance in the sand here, but I think that's natural. I don't think that's anything significant. And there we are. So now what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you some other examples of limbs and things. Okay, so we're out on a limb here today, and what I'm trying to demonstrate here is that there's a massive difference in the size and shape of some of these, and I've got a few examples of actual small mummified aliens here, or Martians, who've got very, very thin limbs. And there's also some animal bones, like this one, this dinosaur bone, and there's another mummified person. Some complex stuff. So I'm going to flip through some of these, not all of them. This is one of my favourites. This is a find by Terry Burnett, and here's my original meme that I did. Here, this is the raw image. Here's the enhanced clip. This is 4 inches, but this is a sitting mummy. Now, as I've said many times before, in the burial mounds, a lot of them were buried sitting, not lying down. Or they had their heads removed and were placed in these little chambers, quite crude chambers, and perhaps the rest of their bodies were either eaten, perhaps even by their ancestors, like they do in places like in parts of Tibet and other parts of the world. On Earth, there are cultures that eat their ancestors' body, or at least eat the flesh from their body, but mummify the heads, or put the heads in a cave or chamber where they are left to dry out and preserve and mummify. So this looks like a very small mummy. Now this, if it was stood up, would be about 8 or 9 inches tall, possibly 10. This is about 3 or 4 inches, tiny. Okay, you can see the arm, spindly little arm. This hand is broken off here. Got a little arm there with a shoulder and a head, and what looks like a kind of a turban or perhaps hair in a sort of ponytail coming down, tied up. There are examples of other aliens that have got tied up hair in little buns and things like that as well. So the man bun is not just an Earth thing, okay? It's called a man bun, or it's just insane. Okay, but this is very, very small. Now here's another very small one. Now this is what looks like a mummified on the surface. This is literally about the same size, about 4 or 5 inches across, and you've got these tiny little limbs here. There's a leg coming down there, and there's an arm coming up here. This is the head, eye sockets here. You can see some sort of body detail. There's another arm here folded inwards. That's there, but not a lot of detail there, I'm afraid. This is a find from many years ago, back in 2013, I think. There is the famous leg bone, which everyone saw a few years back, about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. But I did a full HD examination of it and enhanced it, and a lot of people were saying it's just a rock. It's not. The pitting on it, when you zoom in, that is a bone. It's even got all the pits and holes in the right area and details. This is a thigh bone of some kind of small mammal, perhaps a marine mammal, but it could be from something like a crocodile or something like that. It could be a lizard bone. We don't really know. It does look similar to some marine mammals, but it's much smaller than it looks. This is only about 4 inches. Not very big at all. So it's likely there are lots of lizards in the area that I found. It's probably more likely to be a lizard leg bone, thigh bone. Okay, so but we don't really know. It doesn't match any I've looked at. I've looked at hundreds. Okay, it looks a bit like a few different species of creatures. So who knows? There's this little thing which I don't think I've shown before much. This looks like an arm here and a head of a small creature. This is only a couple of inches across, maybe 3 from here to here. Not a lot of detail there. With a lot of these things, there's not a great deal of detail. There was this I found a while back, which is a really nice find. This is human-sized, if not bigger. From Sol 950, we got what seems to be an arm with fingers here. You can see the fingers here, look. And a wrist bone here, or a double wrist bone at least. This looks like 2 bones that are kind of split up into bits. So that's an arm. In fact, you can see it more clearly at the top there from that distance. So we've got fingers and an arm. Okay. There's also this rather interesting thing here. Don't know what that is, but it looks like some spinal detail or something from some kind of wreckage or creature, or who knows what that is. But there's probably bones as well. There are lots of bones in this area. There was this foot. I don't know if any of you remember this one. I showed it years ago. This is probably part of a statue, but it may not be. You've got the perfect shape of a foot, human, but toes kind of missing there. Got the big toe there and another toe there, but it's not a great quality image, and it's a bit dubious. There's this bone, which is probably one of the clearest I've ever found. I coloured it yellow just to make it stand out. Right next to a drill hole where the rover drilled a hole in the ground, and there was a bone literally only a couple of feet away from the drill hole, and nobody noticed it. Nobody noticed it at all. This looks like another leg bone, perhaps. There's loads of these. There was this one that lots of people published back in the day. Some people thought it looked like part of a Hoover, but it's not. It's actually got like a honeycomb bone-like structure to it here. You can see these holes. There's one in the middle and a whole row of them around the outside of these holes. So this is like a bony structure, like a honeycomb structure to it. It's not made of plastic. It's not a Hoover attachment, as some people said. It could even be part of a weapon, like an axe that's broken, made out of bone. They probably made primitive weapons in the distant past, early Stone Age. There's lots of Stone Age artifacts around, but there's lots of more modern artifacts as well. So when it comes to limbs, I mean, basically there was this bone. This is pretty unremarkable. It looks like a rib bone here. Okay, this is literally only a few inches as well, not very big. That's from years and years back that I found. There's this recent find that I showed. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend this video. Mars skeleton. This looks like the remains of some sort of possible creature, a bit like a turtle or something similar, but we really don't know. Nobody's really come up with a definitive answer to what this actually represents. We've got some very complex bones interlocking here. Okay, with some really cool, like some of the details in here are absolutely insane. Look at this. This was really close up to the rover as well. It's from Sol 885. But that's a recent video, so go back and watch that. There's some crazy stuff in that video, really cool. There's this hand. No, this doesn't look like a human hand, but there's a kind of statue here, or a head, a small carved head here, and just above it is a hand. Now the hand is actually bigger than the head pretty much, but I don't think this hand is from a human. This is probably more likely a reptilian hand, more claw-like, like you would see perhaps on a monitor type lizard, something like that. There are examples of monitor like lizards I've shown. So that's broken off. Often, obviously, when these things die, they would mummify in the sand and become very brittle, and things would break off, especially if there was a storm or something. There's this bone. This is a jawbone from a totally unknown species with a row of teeth. 1, 2, 3. Well, actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly 8. There's probably one tucked in there. Very interesting. And what looks like a small figurine next to it, like a goddess figurine, late Stone Age, Neo Stone Age style. That may be nothing, that may just be a rock, but it almost looks like a little figurine there. It's very strange. So that's a jawbone, but we don't know what sort of creature it belonged to at all. No idea. Doesn't match anything I've seen on Earth. I've got loads of books on bones and skulls and that kind of thing. Also anatomical books and diagrams, books full of them, and this doesn't match anything I've seen. Very strange. One of my favourite skulls, of course, is this one, which I often use in my videos. This one here. I've got hundreds of skulls, but this is probably the best and the largest one I found. This is about 1.5 to 2 feet tall and similar width, with an upturned nasal cavity, upside down, so it's not human, and shark-like teeth. Pointed shark-like teeth here. We have legs, we have limbs on this thing, which is some kind of bird here, with very large legs coming down here. You can see the feet here. This one you can see the actual toes, large toe. This was something a bit like an ostrich, but it is not the same. And we've got this kind of preserved kind of feathery material here. And this is the head up here with the beak, just there. And if you look at the beak, you see the head, eye socket here, here's the beak, upper part and lower part, and this strange feathery material, but it's almost complete, but this looks like a flightless bird. So that was an interesting one. There was this limb that looks like it's been solidified in clay and sediment here, coming down, and this has got 3 or 4 toes on the end. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a foot. So that's a leg there. And you can see the thigh there. This kind of eroded away underneath it. The wind's blown underneath it. So this was kind of stuck in a load of solidified clay, which dried out and went hard. And we've got this really strange thing sticking out here. What that represents, I don't know. That's part of something. So there's some crazy stuff here, and a lot of it looks like it's been left in the wet clay in the lake bed before it dried out, and then solidified and encrusted in clay and dried hard, and then eroded from wind erosion. So I'll put the playlist of my Mars Bones playlist up at the end of this video for you to run through, because a lot of these have got amazing details in. There was this, which I've shown many times before as well. The humanoid mummy, which I published about a year ago. This one has a very long arm, thin, quite small, broken legs with pins through its leg. So this person, this is a juvenile, probably only a few years old, and about 9 inches tall. This is a young person, and basically was crippled or injured and had pins put through its leg, which shows that they had some level of sophisticated medicine on Mars. Okay, it's quite a disturbing image actually, this one, and it's got a chain round it here. If you look here, there's a chain round the torso. You can even see that just here coming round. It's there. Very interesting indeed. So there was that one. And we can see limbs in some of the carvings and stuff as well. This one's one of my favourites, one of my best finds of recent times. The arm is missing on this side, but we have a part of an arm, we've got the torso, this even has breasts, but you've got long human looking legs and a headdress, very similar to this, Aphrodite, ancient goddess on Earth. Okay, this is really small, this is only a few inches. And a lot of these things are embedded in wet clay from the lake bed and probably dropped in there, maybe thrown in there, and have solidified in and become encrusted with the clay as it's dried out, as you can see there. Okay, there was this really old one of my first finds. This is a dinosaur leg bone, a femur. This is huge. This is about 4 foot long, somewhere between 2 and 4 feet. I would say at least 2, possibly 4, possibly 5. This is giant. It's a giant femur. Okay, that was one of my first videos in 2013. They're all over the place, these things. I won't show you all of them now. There's this giant hand I found. This is a hand. Here's the thumb, and these are the fingers on the end. It's encrusted in clay. But what's really odd about this one, it has a hand print on it here. So it's almost like something grabbed it or stood on it. Maybe this is a footprint here, just here. You can see 3 or 4 toe sort of or fingerprints there. This looks like either a hand or a foot of some humanoid or ape, perhaps. Who knows? That was interesting. So there's loads of these. So I'll put all these in at the end anyway in a minute, and you can compare them back to back. There was this large dinosaur bone. This is also quite large. This is a couple of feet long. It may be a bird. This may belong to one of those large flightless birds like I showed earlier. It's that kind of size, and is the right sort of length and width and everything. This is a leg bone, and it's still attached to part of the upper leg here, thigh, it seems, which is mummified. Okay, so there's the main part of the bone there. There's a joint there, and this looks like a part of the thigh material that's still attached to it. Maybe, maybe not, but it's quite large. So I'd imagine that's either a large bird or perhaps a dinosaur or large reptile. It doesn't look mammalian, that's for sure. There's quite a few of these, and there are loads more which I haven't shown. I may add a few more, but by far the most convincing of these, I think, is probably this one, and is the most evocative image of Mars that anyone's found. I think this was found by Lanny Gabor last year, and I still keep coming back to it, and it haunts me, because not only do we have what looks like a juvenile with a chain around its chest, torso here. We've got broken limbs. This leg's broken, but this one has pins in it. 1, 2, 3. Unbelievable. Okay, quite disturbing in many ways, but also it does show that they were quite advanced in medicine, at least at some point in the past. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody. I'll put links to a lot of these things if I can find them, and feel free to ask for any if you want links to some of these images. And that was it. Thanks for watching, everybody. So check out these links for the GIGAPAN, the leg. Is this a human leg? It looks human. It really does. The proportions are human. And I would say, how big is it? Human sized, I would say a bit small for human size, a bit smaller. I would say about half human sized, fully grown. So who knows? Yeah, this belonged to someone who was quite short, less than 4 foot tall, I would say. But do we really know how big that is? Perhaps you might be able to work it out. This could be full size. It's hard to say exactly. We don't really have a reference point for size. It could be worked out, but a leg is a leg. Whether it's from a 5 foot person or a 3 foot person or a 7 foot person, it's still a leg. There we are. So, out on a limb yet again. on the surface of Mars. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clips coming up now.
It's a mystery, and I don't like mysteries. Give me a bellyache, and I got a beauty right now.